Hello, my name is Ayodeji Ameze and I'm here to teach biology. We'll be looking at the topic Excretory System, Part 2. At the end of today's class, you should be able to identify and describe the different types of excretory systems found in plants and man. You should also be able to explain the mechanism by which these excretory organs in plants and man function. What is the excretory system? The excretory system is simply the system found in organisms that helps remove metabolic waste and excess water from the body. Let's talk about metabolic waste. What are metabolic wastes? It can be seen as the waste produced in the bodies of living organisms after the cell or cells use oxygen and nutrients to produce energy. Basically, metabolic waste, we can call them the different chemical reactions that takes place in the body. So for us to talk about the excretory system, we really are talking about the different structures that help us remove these metabolic wastes from the body. Let's talk about the excretory structures found in man. We have the kidney as the main excretory structure found in man. We also have the liver, the skin, even the lungs. They are all seen as excretory structures. But the main excretory structure in man is the kidney. Let's talk about the kidney. What's the kidney? The kidney can be described as a pair. A pair means that they come in twos. As we can see from our picture here, this is one, and this is the second one. In every living human, when you are born with two kidneys. So a kidney is a pair of bean-shaped organs. They are shaped like our typical beans. How many of us like beans? I like beans. Very nutritious. It gives protein. It helps us grow tall. It helps us repair worn-out tissues, and so many more. That's the kidney. It is responsible for removing waste products from the blood. How does it do this? It does this in the form of urine. Urine is what it excretes finally from the body. We'll look at how it functions, or the other functions of the kidney. Besides the fact that it helps serve as the excretory organ, it also helps to regulate the body fluid, electrolyte concentration, and control blood pressure. It also functions in the production of red blood cells. But for the purpose of our class today, we are looking at its excretory function. Let's do a quick one on the structure of the kidney. The kidney has more than 1 million tiny filtering structures. These structures are known as the nephron. Remember, we said these structures are really tiny, so we can't really see them with our eyes easily. The kidney, when cut into two, we can find out that it has two layers. The outer layer, which we call the renal cortex, and the inner layer, which is every other part within here, known as the renal medulla. We also have this part known as the renal pyramids and the renal pelvis. Remember, we talked about tiny structures known as nephron. What is a nephron? The nephron is the basic functional and structural unit of the kidney. By basic functional and structural, we mean that these nephrons are the key parts that make up the entire kidney. They are the ones responsible for filtering and gathering these waste products out of the body. Nephrons are responsible for filtering the blood that passes through the kidney. Where necessary, it reabsorbs the things the body still needs and gives out everyone that should be excreted in the form of urine. Now let's look at the structure of the nephron. Nephron consists of a tuft of capillaries that is called the glomerulus. The glomerulus simply consists of so many capillaries packed into this little corner here. So this area is known as the glomerulus. The second part we'll be looking at is the capsule that surrounds the tuft of capillaries. Remember we said this is the glomerulus that is made up of capillaries. The area that surrounds it, that is a cupped shape, is known as the Bowman's capsule. Furthermore, we have the kidney or renal tubules. Down through this point is the renal tubule. This renal tubule is surrounded by blood vessels. The renal tubule is divided into the proximal convoluted tubule, the U-shaped loop of Henle, and the distal convoluted tubule. From our diagram here, we can see this part, the word proximal, refers to the beginning part or the part that is close to the point source. So this point is known as the proximal convoluted tubule. By convoluted, we mean something that is kind of coiled. So this tubule, we see, is not a straight tube. It has some coils and bends and folds. Down here, this U-shaped part is known as the loop of Henle. This other part that is towards the end of the tube is known as the distal convoluted tubule. How is urine formed? 3 main stages in the formation of urine: the ultrafiltration stage, the selective reabsorption state, and the tubular secretion state. Let's look at them one after the other. The first stage in urine formation is the ultrafiltration stage, and this stage begins as blood circulates through the glomerulus. Remember that we said one of the key parts of the nephron is the area called the glomerulus, where there are tufts of capillaries, quite some number of capillaries, all packed into the Bowman's capsule. These capillaries allows the part of blood that is known as plasma to escape through it. Remember that the blood is made up of plasma and blood cells. This plasma part contains water, mineral salts, glucose, amino acids, and some other waste products like urea, uric acid. Through this tuft of capillaries, plasma escapes in through to the renal tubule. This is the ultrafiltration stage of urine formation. This filtered plasma travels down in through the tubes. Remember, we called it the renal tubes. This plasma filtered is known as the glomerular filtrate at this point. This filtrate goes down through the renal tubes, through the proximal tube and the loop of Henle. The blood moves down. Reabsorption of more of the water, some salts, some amino acids, and all the glucose as much as possible takes place. This process is known as the selective reabsorption because it takes time to sieve the filtrate, the glomerular filtrate that is passing through. It takes up all that it thinks the body still needs from the filtrate. That is why it is called selective reabsorption, because it reabsorbs it back into the body because it feels that the body still needs all of this. The filtrate still further goes down to the distal convoluted tubule. The fluid that remains after the selective reabsorption, it flows down the distal part of the tubule. Some of the waste materials that should leave the body that was not passed out through the plasma goes directly into the tubes from the capillary at the distal end of the tube. So substances such as urea, hydrogen ions, creatine, uric acids, even some drugs, all of those substances that the body thinks it doesn't need, that is still remaining in the blood, it excretes it back into the glomerular filtrate at the distal convoluted tubule. This process is known as the tubular secretion. From the distal convoluted tubule, this filtrate now at this point is known as urine. Flows to the pyramid. Remember, we saw the pyramid earlier, and down through the renal cavity, and is finally drained through the ureter. There are two ureters. It's a pair, the right and the left ureter, and empties into the bladder. From the bladder, this urine is stored till the bladder is full enough. It gives you the signal that you want to urinate. When you go to urinate, through the ureter and down and out, the urine goes. Now, the quantity of urine formed depends on what the body needs per time. When we perspire, by perspire we mean sweat. When we sweat, or when we drink water, little water that is not sufficient enough for the body, the volume of urine we give out reduces. Have you ever been out in the sun? You know that you can go almost the whole day without ever remembering to go to the toilet to urinate. That's because the body looks for a way to preserve more water, because you are giving off some water in the form of sweat and you're not replenishing it with so much water. On the other hand, with less sweating, or when we drink so much water, we see that the volume of urine that is produced increases. Do you know that on a very cold day, the number of times you go to use the toilet, sometimes uncountable? Well, that's simply because the body has so much water in it that it needs to give up a particular quantity. On that cold day, we go to the toilet more often than we would have gone to the toilet on a good day. Remember, we said that the kidneys are the main excretory organs, but we also mentioned the liver, the lungs, and the skin as some other structures used for excretion. Let's look at the lungs. What are the lungs? The lungs are a pair of excretory organs found in the chest area of the body. When we breathe in oxygen, the body uses that oxygen for its own purpose, to produce energy. But there's a waste product called carbon dioxide that is produced. The lungs here helps us remove this waste product, carbon dioxide, through the nostrils. So carbon dioxide is given off from the lungs. That's one form of excretion. The liver, on the other hand, is a reddish-brown organ that is found on the upper part of the abdomen. As we can see here, this is a typical liver. It functions to break down substances that are harmful to the body. That's why our livers are very important to us. We must not joke with our livers by taking in things that will be harmful, because when those harmful substances like nicotine, tobacco, when they get into our bodies, the liver will try to always break down these products. So you give your liver more work to do every other time when you take in substances that are harmful. Now, after breaking down these substances, it excretes it. That is one way the liver helps in excretion. The skin, on the other hand, you will wonder why we say the skin is an excretory organ. Let's describe the skin. It's the outer covering of the body. It is known as the largest organ found in the body. Sweat is the product that is excreted through the skin. Sweating helps us remove dirt and other harmful substances from the skin. Aside water and some salt that is given off, even though sometimes in excess, it's no longer to the advantage of the person. But when you sweat, you also help remove harmful substances or harmful organisms that would have stayed over your skin. So through the pores of the skin, sweat comes out, removing the dirt that are harmful to the body, thereby keeping and maintaining your skin. Let's look at the excretory structures found in plants. What are plants? They can be described as living organisms that are basically able to make their own food themselves. Now, they have cell walls and they grow on soil or water. That's just a short way to describe plants. Now, because plants can make their own food, they produce very little quantity of waste. Therefore, they do not necessarily need a very well-defined excretory structure. However, plants still also look for a way to remove some substances that are not good for its body, especially excess water. And it's removed through the process of transpiration and guttation. What is transpiration? Transpiration is a process in which plants give off water vapor through their leaves, stems, and flowers. Guttation, on the other hand, is the secretion of water droplets from the edges or tips of plants. Well, guttation, we should note that guttation does not necessarily occur in every plant. Even though transpiration does occur in every plant, guttation occurs in some plants, for example, tomatoes. We can see that there are droplets of water. This describes guttation. While this process through which water vapor, we do not readily see water vapor, leaves the leaves of plants. There are various ways through which plants also remove water or remove waste from itself. Other wastes include oxygen and water. Some other wastes may be stored in some parts of the bodies, like the leaves. Gradually, those leaves will fall off. That's another way the plant rids itself of waste. How does oxygen leave plants? Remember that plants make use of carbon dioxide to make its food. And one of the byproducts of this making of its food, which is known as the process of photosynthesis, it gives off oxygen as waste products. That's why oxygen and water are like the main waste that plants have. How does it give off oxygen? Through stomata in leaves and young stems. This is a typical example from our leaf here. From just the spot of the leaf, we find the stomata. The stomata guards the cell such that it opens up when it needs to open up for something to go out, maybe oxygen or water, and closes up when it needs to close up. Lenticels in all stems, root surfaces in all plants are the means through which the plant gives off oxygen. We've come to the end of today's class. Let's do a quick recap of what we have learned. I hope we remember that we said that the kidney is the main structure in humans through which excretion occurs. We also said that there are the lungs, the liver, and the skin. There are other structures that help in excretion in man. We also said that the kidney contains over 1 million tiny filtering structures. What did we call those structures? We call them the nephron. And we said the nephron are the basic functional and structural units of the kidney. We further said that urine formation occurs in 3 main stages. ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and tubular secretion. We also learned that plants, because they make their own food, do not produce so much waste per time. Therefore, they do not necessarily need special excretory structures to release waste. However, excess water is removed through transpiration and the process of guttation. To help us check how much we have learned and understood, I would like to ask us a question. Urine formation in a kidney involves dash, dash, and dash. A. Ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, tubular secretion. B. Ultrafiltration, selective secretion, glomerular secretion. C. Ultrafiltration, renal reabsorption, and tubular circulation. What will your answer be? Will the answer be A, B, or C? The correct answer here is ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and tubular secretion. A. We've come to the very end of today's class. Thank you for listening.